So Maria, you and I met back in April last year. And we began exploring acquisitions soon after that. The reality is that we had already been working with Ulta for a while, and our technology was already being used by Ulta. But there was a point that we started exploring a different kind of relationship, right? So I wanted to ask you, what triggered this path? And also, how did Ulta approach the relationship?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was exactly a year ago that we met in person for the first time in LA. So it's funny how the timing works. So really the trigger for us internally at Ulta came from the digital innovation team. And we have somebody here from the digital innovation team and their desire to really expand our agenda in technology and innovation and to really accelerate our developments. So they reached out to our current partner, Agustina in Glam Street, and they said, hey, how can we make this happen in the next year? And Agustina, rightfully so, like a startup that is like scrabbling every day, every month to like get all the funding that she needs. She said, well, I need a longer term commitment and I need more resources. So for us, when we came back with that, we said, hey, let's just put on the table an acquisition because it would make a lot of sense for all of us and it would meet both our needs and Agustina's needs. So kind of like that's when the conversation shifted from just a vendor, kind of like provider relationship to let's explore something more strategic.
So you were leading corporate strategy when all of this happened, so we were together in this process.
Now I'm in a different role, but yes, I was leading corporate strategy back then.
Yeah, and I imagine this was an important decision and strategy for the company, of course, because it changes how innovation was created, and innovation, a lot of the part of innovation is now created within the company, right? So I wanted to ask you what was unique and distinctive about my company, Glam Street.
Yeah, so many things. Like if you don't know what Glam Street does, I'm assuming everybody has the Ulta app on their phones, but if not, you should download it and go to the virtual makeup try-on, the Glam Lab. And this is kind of what Agustina, who's amazing and created an amazing team, has done. So it's not like a gimmicky Snapchat filter. The realism of this is amazing. And it's really important for us because it enables people to try on makeup virtually without actually putting it on your face. So the first thing that was distinctive about you was exactly that space, the development that you had done, the fact that augmented reality had a real consumer use case in beauty, that Ulta is one of the largest beauty players, really wanted to own that and kind of like craft our own destiny and not have a third-party vendor tell us what to do. And we saw that very important. The second thing that made Glam Street and Agustina and their team distinctive is that we knew each other. So we knew our weaknesses, we knew our strengths, we had already worked together, and for those of you who understand Spanish, mejor malo conocido que bueno por conocer. We knew each other, right? We knew that, and that was really good going in. And then the third thing that is really something that I want to highlight is Agustina's passion as an entrepreneur, her belief in what she was doing, how when we brought her in to kind of like share with our chief marketing officer the vision that she had of her company and her technology in beauty, how it resonated with the values of our company, what we see as a vision. Like you could see sparks flying between our teams and her team. Everybody was getting super excited. And literally that was like a moment where I was like, oh my God, this is actually gonna work really, really well. Like these people, all of them are gonna work together really well. So those were really the kind of like the three key elements of making your company so distinct.
So as we both know, this was one of the first ever acquisitions of Ulta Beauty. So it was quite a big deal for the company, right? And you led most of this process. I wanted to ask you, how did you approach the acquisition process and what were your key learnings from this?
So yes, this was one of the first acquisitions ever for Ulta, something that I feel very proud of, and everybody that worked with me on this, it wasn't only me, worked very hard and are very proud of. The two things that we had to do was work kind of like internally and externally. So internally, we already had a mandate from the board to be very proactive in M&A. As a strategy team, we developed many different areas where we wanted M&A. One was enabling technologies and capabilities to bring them in. And we had already seeded the ground. We had already kind of like started participating in some due diligence processes and looking at other companies. So there was already that. So I had worked the internal angle. And then externally was working with you and building a relationship with you. You guys would, like, we started talking, I think like literally a year ago, basically on a weekly basis. I remember being in the car driving, I have a commute to Bolingbroke, which is a little bit long, being in the car talking to Agustina, and like on a weekly basis. There were even times where my kids were in the car and Agustina knew them already before. So we really just worked. I really wanted to understand what were her priorities as an entrepreneur, what was she looking for, what were the things that mattered for her in a process like this to ensure that whatever kind of like we came to with and put a kind of like in front of you was meeting all of your needs. But then you asked me also like, what was it that I learned? Yeah. So the key learnings were really, I would never underscore the importance of like having that open conversation and communication. The fact that we talked every week. I did the same thing internally, and we were talking with our leadership team and the leading business team every single week. So just not underscoring how important it is to keep everybody in the loop and to ensure that you're bringing everybody along.
So we are both Latinas. You are from Colombia, I am from Uruguay. And I can say actually I enjoyed the process of the acquisition, which I think is rare. So how important do you think are the people behind the acquisition? And also, how do you think our common backgrounds helped build bridges between both companies?
Yes, so extremely important. It's absolutely all about the relationships. And the M&A process is about the relationships, especially when you're talking about a smaller company, because actually, if you think about it, we talk about it internally, we call it about an acqui-hire, like you're acquiring the people, because it's a very young company, so I can't even tell you how important the relationship is. And then the fact that we're both Hispanics and that we had kind of like a similar background was super important, and we were playing it in different roles. And actually, throughout the process, I didn't really see it. It was actually you, and I'll tell you guys this story later, when she pointed it out. But Agustina, in the meantime, was ensuring that her team felt comfortable working with a US-based company, that this US-based company was going to take care of them, that the integration was going to work, that this was like the right approach for her company. And she was doing that as a woman from Uruguay who was now living in San Francisco and had been doing this for a while. And then me on my end, coming from Colombia, now living in the US, I was actually doing this also kind of like unknowingly convincing my company that the first foray outside of the US was going to be in Uruguay, of all countries, and then it was okay and totally normal, and that we would be able to make this a successful endeavor. And it was actually Agustina who brought this up when we had kind of like a cocktail reception to celebrate the acquisition in Uruguay. And she turned around, she was giving this lovely speech, and she turns around and she says, "I don't think this would have been possible, Maria, had you not been there at Alta in the role that you were in." And that was a very important moment for me, because I realized as a Hispanic, I had done something for Hispanics. That was like the first time that I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually did something, and it was very natural, and it was authentic, and it actually created value, and I was able to convince a company of the value that we would bring, all of us as Hispanics, in this team that you built.
Yeah. So a little bit of a reflection. It's been 6 months since the acquisition. So I wanted to ask you what has happened over this time?
It's been amazing. So we worked through all of the little kinks of the integration and the back-end processes and systems and all of that, which is not the fun part. But we've been really focusing on blending the cultures, making sure that your team feels part of Alta, that you guys are part of Alta. So we got them new offices that look like Alta. We brought them here to participate like in our big leadership forum and like our onboarding sessions, etc. We've gotten into this cadence where Agustina's manager and that team travels all the time to Uruguay back and forth. So we've really focused on the culture. And then, just so you guys know, Agustina and the team have been delivering every single milestone that we had said. She's amazing, and she does that really well. So everything that we had kind of like planned out has played out. And we are super, super excited. And actually, when we announced all of these acquisitions, we had a really good return on our stock. So everybody's very excited about that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, this is a proof that this can be possible and that Latinos can achieve great things. So we are looking forward to seeing more examples like ours in the future.
Yes, please.
Exactly.